Hi, and welcome to our latest episode of From the Bench. I am Outsports Sid Zeigler. I'm with Wade.
Wade Davis.
What?
I screwed that up. My bad.
Yes, I'm with Wade Davis, who just had to jump on my line. Wade is in New York. I'm in LA. And the NFL this week has been talking about changing locker room culture. They've been talking about it for a while, since last autumn. Jonathan Martin quit the Miami Dolphins. He claimed because of the locker room culture, Michael Sam being drafted by the St. Louis Rams, and the perception of homophobia in the locker room. There's a lot of people talking in the NFL about changing locker room culture. And I know, Wade, you are a part of the program that they are trying to put forward, visiting every single NFL team to talk about this, and I'm sure there are bits and pieces you can't talk to us about or tell us, but what can you tell us about kind of your involvement and what you know and what this is going to look like?
Yeah, so the NFL has an initiative called the Respect at Work initiative, right? And it's not really just focused on LGBT stuff. It's the N-word. It's just overall respect, and how do they create a culture where all players feel respected. And it was really wonderful to kind of sit down with. The NFL has this ambassador program where they had, I think, 16 guys in a room, and we all kind of sit and talk and brainstorm about how do you kind of deliver a message to players and coaches that can be received, that they can kind of now start to do the type of work where all players feel respected. It's an interesting idea. Me and Robert Gulliver and Troy Vincent talk about how that this is step one, right? Like that this is not something that's going to change overnight. And what I really know about it is that it all starts with the owners, GMs, and the head coaches, right? That if you can be the type of leader that I would say a Coach Fisher is, that does really great top-down leadership and really kind of delegates and gets the right type of players who can lead from the bottom up, then the type of culture that is acceptable, right, in a locker room space will be better.
Yeah, but you're talking so there are so many bits and pieces of this, and it's definitely not just an LGBT thing or a gay thing. For me, hazing is a big deal, and I just visited my fraternity at Stanford yesterday. Shout out to the Theta Delts. And we talked about the important hazing and the role of hazing in building bonds and all this stuff. And hazing's has a very historic role in sports, of trying to build brotherhood. And I see, every summer, ESPN, NFL Network, the guys chuckle and almost celebrate hazing, whether it's just taping guys to goalposts or dunking them in ice. How much of what they want to tackle is hazing, and how much of the problems in the locker room are reflected in hazing?
So I don't think that there's a specific thing that they're talking about as far as hazing, right? It's really just overall locker room culture and player respect. So I'm sure that, as you remember, the Dez Bryant issue, right, where typically first round draft picks who get a lot of money are asked to pay for certain things, right? So how do you speak to coaches and GMs first, right, and to make sure that those types of things aren't done? There is going to be a certain level of norming that happens on a team. A quick story. Like when I was at Weber State, I was a senior, and then there was a freshman who came on, and I could have sworn this guy told me his name was Frank. I could have sworn, right? So for 2 weeks, I'm calling this kid Frank. Come to find out, this kid's name is like Tony or something. And I go up to the kid and I go, "Hey, why am I calling you Tony? First of all, this kid was like 6'6", 300 pounds. He could have squashed me." He looked at me and said, "I want to fit in. I just wanted you to like me. You're a captain." So I think that we have to be mindful of, there are certain times where just athletes just allow things to happen to them that aren't meant to be hazing or aren't meant to be troublesome, but the guys just kind of want to fit in so bad. And I really think that that's kind of what happened with Jonathan Martin. So I think the larger conversation that we had at the owners meeting, with the NFL thing, is that how do you make sure guys feel comfortable enough to speak up if something's happening in the locker room that they aren't okay with?
Well, I remember with that Dez Bryant episode, was it 2 or 3 years ago, whenever it was, I remember analysts saying, "Okay, yeah, Dez is upset. You know, he doesn't want to do this." But I remember, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Brewski. One of the former players said, "But the guys are gonna get him. He's gonna pay double. One way or the other, he's gonna pay." And so there's this idea that, you know, even with this kind of stuff, you hear this kind of stuff. If you are a rookie or maybe even a second-year guy, and if you speak up, you're gonna pay.
But it all depends on the team, right? So when I was in Tennessee, that happened to a certain extent, right? So like I was the only rookie that didn't get their eyebrows shaved, only because I sung "Coming to American" song, "He's Your Queen," or "She's Your Queen" perfectly, right? When I was in Seattle, um, Mike Holmgren was such, for lack of a better word, a tyrant that no one dared to treat anyone an incorrect way because they feared that if it got back to him, that he would, you know, rain the hell of God down on you, right? So it truly depends on the type of leadership that you have. There are certain coaches who really don't care, who think it's all in good fun, and there are other coaches who are like, no, this will never happen under my watch, and if it does happen, there's hell to pay.
Okay, so take us into Coach Fisher's locker room a little bit. I mean, you said there was some hazing was allowed to happen. What kind of environment? And of course, this was 10, 12 years ago. So, you know, everybody evolves. What kind of locker room was there?
So one of the big things that there's a rookie talent show, right? So rookies, you know, have to get up and do something to entertain the other vets, you know. So I sang, you know. There were other guys who told jokes. There are other guys who did little dances, and that was something that was like you kind of just like showing the other guys that you weren't taking yourself that serious, and that and that like it was really like a form of bonding, right? And the guys that didn't want to do that, they got their clothes thrown into the cold tub, right? Or they got the brow shaved. But there was never, I felt from my perspective, anything that was done to a player that was harmful. And there were certain guys who said, look, I don't want to be involved in this. Guys just didn't talk to him. Now, what you did see was those type of guys, they didn't, you know, bond with the other guys as quickly because they felt that you were a little bit more standoffish, you know. So I think it's a combination of guys just really wanting you to kind of relax around them, and also you're a rookie, you know, and you want to fit in, and if this is a part of that, you just do it.
So Adrian Peterson was talking about this earlier this week or last week, and it's funny because he was asked about it on, I think it was Sports Illustrated, and he's like, yeah, you know, we'll have a conversation and guys will talk about it, and then he thought, he's like, well, maybe it'll have an impact, and no, this isn't going to change a damn thing. So, I mean, you talk about it being a first step. Can you change things this season? Can you have an impact this season with these conversations, and how long would it take to really change the culture of these locker rooms just so they become more respectful places?
You know, so I'm a believer in the power of storytelling. So, right, so when I go to speak to the Rams guys and I tell them my own story and I talk about the idea of wasted motion, right? And instead of guys like falling asleep or not paying attention, there were a number of guys who came up to me and said, hey, man, like, thank you. Like, I had no clue, right, that this was the type of experience that gay players have on teams. And whether it's one player or two player or the entire team that has an expansion or a shift in consciousness, that's powerful, right? And it's also powerful if one of your team leaders, a Laurinaitis type guy who came up to me, is the first person, right? So, you know, in some spaces, yes, in some spaces, no. But just the fact that from me speaking at the NFL owners meeting, I get calls from individual teams wanting me to come and talk to their teams. There's been a shift in the coaching staff, right? Like just in their mentality. So I think it is a first step. You know, as Adrian Peterson said, yeah, like it's a long way, but you know there has been some progress.
How much of this kind of disrespect in the locker room is all done in fun, like you said? Like, you know, the taping guys to goalposts is one thing, but how much? And when Jonathan Martin quit the team, some guys said, "Oh, people were always joking around when they insulted his mother or his race." How much of it is done all in fun?
So, I'll be honest with you, there is a mixture, right? So you have groups of guys on the team that are really the jokesters. The defensive linemen typically are the funniest guys on the teams. And then you got the defensive backs who, we really aren't that confident because we always get beat a lot. So we really try to show up in the locker room as really confident, arrogant guys. So those two groups of guys are typically your ringleaders, right? So what happens is that, you find guys that don't really stand up for themselves, and you're trying to get them to stand up for themselves, and part of that is by making fun of them, right? And what happens is, from my experience, there are guys who don't say anything who get picked on more, and then there are other guys who speak up for themselves, and then you go, okay, like he's not going to allow this to happen. So it's really kind of an and both. But to answer your question specifically, most guys do not have any malice or intent to hurt any of their teammates. It's just really, hey, you're waiting for that guy to tell you you've gone too far and you know what his limit is.
I just always struggle with the purpose of any of this stuff. I just, again, when I started my fraternity at Stanford, it was the one rule was no hazing, because I just never got the harassment and the hazing and the mean-spirited joking. I just never got the purpose of it.
Well, so I'm a believer in that. I don't really understand the purpose of certain types of hazing, and I don't even know if I would use it as that word. But I can think about my sisters, right? I have 3 older sisters, and they did things to me that an outsider could view as hazing, right? But
that's
when
they didn't like you.
But when you think of a family, and a locker room is a family structure, so there are things that may happen, and an outsider may say, wow, that's really problematic. But from a family perspective, you go, hey, my brother's okay with this. I can do this to my brother, but you can't. You know what I mean? And yes, it's a very thin line, but I'm sure, I don't know if you have any siblings. Well, you have a sister, right? So I'm sure there were times when she treated you like crap, or you treated her like crap, and you didn't even realize that you were hurting that other person.
There was one time I beat my brother one-on-one basketball, and he went into the house, got his BB gun, and chased me around the house with it. And I really thought he was going to shoot me. Yeah. So I get it. I get it. That's my brother, though. We were 12. These people are not brothers, and they're in their mid to late 20s and 30s. But all right, I'll give you that. Athletes are allowed to be children.
So in your fraternity, I'm curious, was there never times where guys would tease each other and make fun of each other? I'm sure you guys saw each other naked, and there were certain guys who were more endowed or less endowed, or there were a guy who maybe hit on a girl or a guy and got shot down, and you teased him.
Oh, it was constant. One of the big differences was it's not a workplace. And the other thing is that, I don't remember race really being on the table. I don't even remember sexual orientation really being on the table. The guys are pretty cool, and going back, the house has a couple of out gay members now, and they say, it's if somebody says something in the house that's homophobic. I guess just last weekend, some guy from another fraternity showed up in the house and called somebody a faggot because he did something, and the Theta Delts, the other fraternity brothers, said, "Get out of our house. We don't allow that here." So yes, of course that stuff happens, but I think there's this stuff about who you are, race and gender and sexual orientation. That stuff, for me, it's always off limits. For me, I just don't like to joke about that stuff.
No, I'm not saying that is or isn't off limits, but I'm sure that there was sexist language that was said there, right? So is it okay for guys to say sexist things, but then you critique a guy or say it's not okay for you to say racist or homophobic things? Just because I really feel that it's almost like the thing that we do now is we critique race, we critique homophobia, but calling someone a bitch, is okay, right? So it really is a larger conversation about how do we treat people who we assume that we care about.
They are so busy calling each other bro and dude and man that I don't think they have time for those other things. So quickly, when do you go out on the road? Do you know? Do you know some of the teams that you're going to be visiting with?
Well, first I'll be starting at the Rookie Symposium, and that's the 22nd to the 28th, and then I'm just working on the calendar now because they're kind of getting me these dates very late, and I have other engagements, so I'm just trying to work around that now. But it'll start out at the Rookie Symposium.
They need you more than you need them, so they do. All right. Well, good luck. Well, Wade and I will be in Portland next week at the LGBT Sports Summit. I guess we could do something. Yeah, we could do something early in the week next week. So we will check back then. Also, later this week, check out Nike's Be True line, which funds the LGBT Sports Coalition, and YouTube's Proud to Play #ProudToPlay, which featuring Wade Davis.
And you can play.
And you can play. We'll talk to you next week.